Student loans are a disaster. There's new rules, there's new programs, there's lawsuits. Now, years ago, I studied millionaires, not just how they built wealth, but how they avoided financial traps that keep most people stuck. And what I found was simple, yet completely different from what most people do. And after working with 20,000 young professionals, I've seen firsthand how this one principle separates those who actually achieve financial freedom from those who stay stuck in the grind every day. And today I'm going to share that insight with you. With that being said, let's jump into it. Now, over the last 4 years, the Biden administration has rolled out change after change after change. Some of these were meant to help, others just added more and more complexity to an already extremely complex student loan system. They rolled out like new repayment plans, new loan forgiveness adjustments, deadlines constantly shifting, lawsuits, throwing everything into question. And through it all, on top of that, you had people on like YouTube saying, hey, here's a 20-minute video on how to hack the system. They would say things like, well, if you do this, then this, then this, and it will save you thousands. And it all looks great on paper. But in reality, it relied on things like loan servicers working efficiently, which they never do things quickly because they can't. All these changes take time to code. And then on top of that, the Biden administration, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, they just constantly started changing things. So all these loops and loopholes and things on social media just made things even more complex. And then we got to talk about the SAVE plan. The whole idea was lower payments, easy forgiveness. But it was actually an extremely complex plan. It was actually, like for graduate students, it actually turned out to be a terrible deal for most of them in terms of how much they would pay over the life of the loan. And then as expected, there's lawsuits piling up on it. So what was the right move? And what lesson from those millionaires that I mentioned earlier can we learn? Well, first and foremost, for a lot of FitBucks members, we told them to stay put, meaning if you're on a loan forgiveness plan, stay on IBR or pay as you earn. Why did we say that? It wasn't because we had some like crystal ball knowing this stuff was going to happen. We had a feeling that it might, but we didn't know. But it's because of that lesson from the millionaires. So what's the big secret with millionaires and what do? They don't chase complexity. They keep things simple. Let's look at student loans again. IBR was law. It had clear rules. It was working. Was it always the absolute best or cheapest option? No, but it was extremely reliable. And in finance, predictability is priceless. Now, look at the opposite of that, the SAVE plan and all these new rules and regulations that they were coming out with. It was just extremely, extremely confusing and uncertainty and a mess to untangle. The stress of complexity, like all those people I think there's 8 million people right now just in limbo. The stress of not knowing what to do, it's huge, and not just on your finances, but that stress affects your relationships. It affects your ability to focus at work. And if you're in healthcare, for example, it can even affect patient outcomes. And now I use the example of student loans, but it's not just student loans that people tend to overcomplicate things. So for example, investing, that's one of the biggest things we get from the young professionals we work with. And I get questions all the time from people who want to start trading stocks. Like some of them don't even have jobs yet, but they're worried about picking the right stocks. Meanwhile, these millionaires I mentioned to you that I had studied, they don't even own individual stocks. They put a fixed amount into an indexed ETF, and their only goal is to increase how much they're investing over time. They don't even check the balances on the investments. They hardly even care. They just keep putting the money in. Okay? Or for example, buying a house. Okay? The internet is flooded with these home buying hacks that promise huge savings, and if you follow these 15 steps perfectly, like you're going to be a millionaire. Well, one wrong move, like you don't follow it perfectly, which most of the time you're not going to be able to, everything just gets blown up and you lose your ass. But the pattern is always the same. People who overcomplicate these things and overcomplicate money, they end up in a really bad situation. Millionaires simplify it. The power of simplicity is why when I was developing FitBucks, we came up with a 5-step financial planning system where we only focus on 2 goals. A short-term goal where you put all your available money towards one thing at a time, and we have a long-term goal where we divide money into 3 categories. One of those categories is money for future self, which is like savings and investments. Your long-term goal is to put as much money to that as possible and increase it over time. That's it. No overthinking, no jumping through a bunch of hoops, just a system that works. So at the end of the day, keeping things simple is key. And if you understand that and you want to know how to make all your finances simple, then the next thing you need to do is